The unexpected encounter. The distant star cast its amber light across the hull of the exploration vessel Perseverance as Captain Sarah Martinez stood before the massive viewport in her ready room. 3 months into their deep space mission, her crew had made the discovery of a lifetime. Below them, the planet Kepler 442c held secrets that could change humanity's place in the universe forever. Captain, came the voice of Dr. Elena Vasquez through the comm system. You need to see what we've found in the ruins. The energy readings are unlike anything in our databases. Martinez made her way to the science laboratory, her boots echoing through the corridors of the ship. The Perseverance wasn't a military vessel, but rather a scientific exploration craft equipped with the most advanced research equipment Earth could provide. Its crew of 200 specialists had volunteered for a 5-year mission to catalog potentially habitable worlds in this sector of space. In the lab, Dr. Vasquez stood before a holographic display showing the ancient structures they had discovered on the planet's surface. The ruins stretched across several kilometers, clearly the remnants of a highly advanced civilization that had vanished millennia ago. The architecture suggests a species that understood quantum mechanics at a level we're only beginning to comprehend, Vasquez explained, her dark eyes bright with excitement. But more importantly, we've detected active energy sources within the central spire. The technology is still functional after all these years. Commander James O'Brien, the ship's security chief and former military officer, studied the scans with a more cautious expression. Captain, with respect to Dr. Vasquez's enthusiasm, we should consider the implications. If this technology is as advanced as she suggests, we might not be the only ones interested in it. Martinez nodded thoughtfully. O'Brien's military background had proven invaluable during their mission, his tactical thinking often providing perspectives that pure scientists might miss. What are you suggesting, Commander? I recommend we establish a defensive perimeter around our landing site and limit our exposure time on the surface. If there are other spacefaring civilizations in this region, news of our discovery could travel fast. Dr. Vasquez frowned. Commander, we've been exploring this sector for months without encountering any signs of alien life. The probability of contact is minimal. O'Brien's weathered face remained serious. Doctor, in my experience, it's not the probable threats you need to worry about. It's the impossible ones that catch you off guard. Martinez made her decision. We'll proceed with caution. Dr. Vasquez, I want your team to prioritize the most critical discoveries. Commander O'Brien, implement Security Protocol Delta. If we encounter any unknown contacts, I want to be ready. The next 48 hours passed in a blur of scientific activity. The away teams working on the planet's surface had made breakthrough after breakthrough, uncovering technology that seemed to operate on principles of physics that humanity had only theorized about. The central spire contained what appeared to be a faster-than-light communication array, still operational and filled with data that could advance human technology by centuries. It was during the 3rd day of their investigation that the universe decided to prove O'Brien's caution justified. Captain, to the bridge immediately, came the urgent voice of Lieutenant Torres, the communications officer. We have multiple contacts approaching our position. Martinez arrived on the bridge to find her crew working with focused intensity around their stations. The main view screen displayed a tactical overview of the system, with several large objects moving toward their position at tremendous speed. Report, Martinez ordered, settling into her command chair. 7 ships approaching from the inner system, Torres announced. Configuration unknown, but they're massive. The lead vessel is at least 3 times the size of the Perseverance. O'Brien studied the tactical display with growing concern. Captain, those aren't exploration vessels. Look at their formation and approach vector. They're moving like a military fleet. The ships that emerged from faster-than-light travel were unlike anything in human experience. Sleek and predatory, they seemed to flow through space with an organic grace that spoke of technology far beyond Earth's current capabilities. The hulls shimmered with energy patterns that created an almost hypnotic effect against the star field. Incoming transmission, Torres reported. They're broadcasting on multiple frequencies. The computer is working to decode their language patterns. Within moments, the universal translator that Earth's linguists had developed began parsing the alien communication. A voice, synthesized but clearly intelligent, filled the breach. Unknown vessels, you are trespassing in hegemony space. Identify yourselves and state your purpose in this system. Martinez exchanged glances with her senior officers. This was the moment every human had wondered about since they first looked up at the stars. First contact with an alien civilization. Open a channel, she ordered. This is Captain Sarah Martinez of the Earth vessel Perseverance. We are explorers from the planet Earth, conducting scientific research on the ancient ruins below. We were not aware this system was claimed territory. The response came swiftly, and the tone was unmistakably dismissive. Earth is not recognized in hegemony records. You are clearly a primitive species that has only recently achieved basic space travel. The artifacts on this world are protected heritage sites of the hegemony. You will cease your activities immediately and depart this system. Dr. Vasquez stepped forward, her scientific passion overriding diplomatic caution. Captain, we can't leave now. The discoveries we've made could benefit all sentient life. Surely they would understand the value of scientific cooperation. O'Brien placed a restraining hand on her arm. Doctor, I don't think they're interested in cooperation. The alien transmission continued. You have one standard time period to comply. Failure to do so will result in the confiscation of your primitive vessels and the relocation of your crew to appropriate facilities. Martinez felt a cold anger building in her chest. Humanity had fought too hard for too long to bow to anyone's demands for submission. Commander O'Brien, what are our options? O'Brien studied the tactical display with the eye of a professional soldier. Militarily, we're outgunned and outnumbered. But, Captain, I've been analyzing their approach patterns and formation discipline. They're overconfident, probably used to dealing with species that submit immediately. They're not expecting resistance. Are you suggesting we fight 7 ships with our single exploration vessel? I'm suggesting we make them think twice about their assumptions, O'Brien replied with a grim smile. The Perseverance may be a science ship, but she was built with Earth's usual paranoia about unknown threats. We have defensive capabilities they probably can't imagine. Dr. Vasquez looked shocked. Captain, surely diplomacy is the better option. Violence should be our last resort. Martinez stood from her command chair, her decision crystallizing. Humanity had spent centuries learning that freedom was never given freely. It had to be earned, sometimes through sacrifice, sometimes through strength, but always through the courage to stand up for what was right. Open a channel to the alien fleet, she ordered. When the connection was established, Martinez spoke with the calm authority that had earned her command of humanity's most advanced exploration vessel. This is Captain Martinez. We appreciate your concern for the preservation of these ancient sites. However, Earth recognizes no authority over scientific discovery and the pursuit of knowledge. We will continue our research mission. The silence that followed seemed to stretch across the void of space. When the alien response came, the synthesized voice carried unmistakable anger. Your species appears to require education in proper galactic protocols. We are Zix Thera of the Hegemony Third Fleet. These ruins belong to our ancestors. Your continued presence is theft. Commander Zix Thera, Martinez replied, emphasizing the military rank. I am Captain Martinez of Earth's Deep Space Exploration Command. Our research suggests these ruins predate any current galactic civilization by thousands of years. Unless you can provide evidence of legitimate claim, we will continue our scientific mission. Through the view screen, they could see the alien ships adjusting their formation, moving into what was clearly an attack posture. The lead vessel, a graceful predator of metal and energy, moved closer to the Perseverance. Captain, O'Brien said quietly, I'm reading weapon systems coming online across their fleet. They're preparing to make good on their threats. Martinez nodded grimly. All hands, this is the captain. We are about to engage in first contact of a different kind than we anticipated. Remember, we represent not just ourselves, but all of humanity. We will not be intimidated, and we will not abandon our mission. All departments, prepare for defensive action. The Perseverance might have been designed for exploration, but Earth's engineers had learned hard lessons from their own violent history. Hidden beneath the sensor arrays and laboratory modules were defensive systems that would have impressed even veteran military commanders. Point defense turrets emerged from concealed positions along the hull. Energy shields, based on breakthrough research in electromagnetic field manipulation, began to charge. Most importantly, the ship's computer systems began broadcasting a signal that would reach Earth's nearest military outpost within hours. Incoming message from the lead alien vessel, Torres announced. This time, the image that appeared on their view screen was not a mere voice transmission. A being stood before them that challenged every human assumption about alien life. Tall and graceful, with features that seemed to shift between reptilian and something entirely other, Zixthera commanded attention through sheer presence. Your species shows remarkable stubbornness for primitives, the alien commander said, compound eyes that seemed to contain flecks of starlight, regarding them with what might have been curiosity. This is your final opportunity to withdraw peacefully. Captain Martins met those alien eyes with steady determination. Commander, humanity has a saying, give me liberty or give me death. We didn't travel across the galaxy to bow to anyone's demands. For the first time, something like surprise crossed the alien commander's features. You would risk your lives for the right to study ancient ruins. We would risk our lives for the right to determine our own destiny, Martins replied simply. The connection ended, and O'Brien immediately reported increased energy readings from the alien fleet. Captain, they're charging weapons. Multiple targets locked onto our position. Martinez settled back into her command chair, feeling the weight of history on her shoulders. In the next few minutes, humanity would either earn its place among the stars or face the consequences of challenging powers beyond their understanding. All stations report ready, O'Brien announced. Then let's show the galaxy what humans are made of, Martins said calmly. Engage defensive systems. Protect the away teams on the surface at all costs, and send a message to Earth Command. First contact established. Situation developing. Humanity endures. As the first energy weapons began to discharge across the void of space, Captain Sarah Martinez and the crew of the Perseverance prepared to write a new chapter in the story of human determination. The galaxy takes notice. The first shots of humanity's introduction to galactic politics came not as explosive destruction, but as precise beams of energy designed to disable rather than destroy. Zixthera had not achieved command of a hegemony fleet by being needlessly wasteful. Primitive species were more valuable alive than dead, and their technology could often be adapted for useful purposes. What the hegemony commander had not anticipated was the response from the small human vessel. Incoming fire, Commander O'Brien announced with professional calm. Point defense systems engaging. The Perseverance erupted in defensive activity. Arrays of kinetic interceptors, invisible to most sensor systems, created a protective barrier around the ship. The alien energy weapons, designed to overwhelm primitive deflector shields, found themselves dissipated against a defense system that operated on entirely different principles. Impossible, Zixthera muttered on the bridge of the hegemony vessel Dominance. Science Officer Gulkaran, a member of a recently integrated species known for their analytical abilities, studied the sensor readings with growing amazement. Commander, the human vessel is using ballistic interception rather than energy deflection. Their defensive system is tracking our weapons fire and physically destroying the energy packets before impact. I have never seen such a technique. Zixthera's eyes narrowed. In 3 decades of enforcing hegemony authority, no primitive species had ever successfully defended against the first demonstration of superior firepower. It was unprecedented and deeply unsettling. Aboard the Perseverance, Captain Martinez watched the tactical display with grim satisfaction. Status report. All incoming fire neutralize, O'Brien reported. However, Captain, our point defense ammunition is finite. We can't sustain this level of defensive fire indefinitely. Dr. Vasquez, who had remained on the bridge despite Martinez's earlier suggestion that she return to her laboratory, studied the alien ships with the eye of a scientist rather than a soldier. Captain, their formation is beautiful but predictable. They're maintaining perfect geometric spacing, which suggests they've never encountered an enemy that could exploit tactical weaknesses. Martinez looked at her science officer with new respect. Explain. Military tactics aren't my field, but I studied enough archaeological warfare patterns to recognize certain principles. These aliens fight like they've never faced an opponent who could adapt or improvise. They're following protocols rather than thinking strategically. O'Brien nodded approvingly. The doctor's right, Captain. They're treating this like a standard intimidation display. They haven't considered the possibility that we might have tactics they've never encountered. On the dominance, Velcaran was reaching similar conclusions from the opposite perspective. Commander, analysis of the human vessel's defensive patterns suggests they are adapting their responses in real time. This is not programmed behavior, but active tactical thinking. Zixthera's confidence began to waver. In the hegemony's long history of expansion, primitive species fell into predictable categories. They either submitted immediately upon seeing superior technology, or they fought with desperate fury until overwhelmed by superior numbers. None had ever demonstrated the kind of calm tactical adaptation he was witnessing. Increase firepower, he ordered. Target their propulsion systems. If they insist on resistance, we'll disable their vessel and board them directly. The second wave of hegemony weapons fire was more intense, designed to overwhelm the human ship's defensive capabilities through sheer volume. Energy beams lanced across space in brilliant displays of technological superiority. What happened next would be discussed in galactic military academies for generations to come. Instead of attempting to intercept every incoming shot, the Perseverance began to move, not with the ponderous adjustments typical of large spacecraft, but with quick, precise bursts of directional thrust that sent the ship dancing between energy beams like a fighter craft despite its size. How are they achieving such maneuverability? Velcaran demanded, his sensor readings showing movement patterns that defied conventional understanding of spacecraft design. The answer lay in Earth's unique approach to space exploration. Unlike species that had developed space travel gradually over millennia, humanity had been forced to compress centuries of technological development into decades. Their ships were designed by engineers who understood both the principles of spaceflight and the brutal realities of atmospheric combat. Commander O'Brien, Martinez said calmly as another wave of energy fire passed harmlessly through space where they had been moments before. I believe it's time to demonstrate that Earth didn't develop space travel just for exploration. O'Brien's grin was predatory. With pleasure, Captain. Activating offensive systems. The transformation of the Perseverance was startling to witness. Panels along the hull slid away to reveal weapon emplacements that had been carefully concealed within the ship's supposedly peaceful exterior. Humanity's paranoid assumption that the universe might not be friendly had led to exploration vessels that could defend themselves against considerable threats. Target the lead vessel's weapon systems, Martinez ordered. Precision strikes only. We're making a point, not starting a war. The human counterattack employed principles of warfare that the hegemony had forgotten in their millennia of unchallenged dominance. Instead of the overwhelming displays of power typical of technologically superior civilizations, the Perseverance used precise, calculated strikes designed to disable specific systems while leaving the ships themselves intact. Kinetic projectiles, accelerated to tremendous velocities by magnetic rails, struck the dominance with surgical precision. The hegemony vessel's weapons arrays went dark one by one, not destroyed but simply rendered inoperative by perfectly placed shots that severed power conduits and targeting systems. Report. Zixthera demanded as his ship's offensive capabilities were systematically neutralized. Primary weapons offline, his tactical officer reported with barely concealed panic. Secondary arrays non-responsive. The humans are using projectile weapons with impossible accuracy. Velkaran looked up from his sensor station with something approaching awe. Commander, their targeting system is predicting our defensive maneuvers. They're not just accurate, they're anticipating our responses. The battle, if it could be called that, was over within minutes. 7 hegemony vessels hung in space with their weapons disabled, their crews unharmed but thoroughly humbled. Not one human life had been lost, and the Perseverance showed only minor damage from the few energy beams that had managed to make contact. Captain Martinez opened a communication channel to the hegemony fleet. Commander Zixthera, I hope this demonstration has clarified our position. Earth has no desire for conflict, but we will not be intimidated or forced to abandon legitimate scientific research. The response, when it came, carried a tone that hadn't been present before. Respect. Captain Martinez, your tactical capabilities are unexpected for a species we classified as primitive. However, you must understand that this incident will not go unreported. The Hegemony Council will take a keen interest in your people. We look forward to discussing our mutual interests with your superiors, Martins replied diplomatically. Until then, we will continue our research mission. You and your crews are welcome to observe our work if you're interested in scientific cooperation rather than intimidation. The next several hours passed in tense but productive activity. While the hegemony ships maintained their positions in the system, the crews began communicating with the human researchers. Dr. Vasquez found herself in lengthy discussions with Velkaran about the implications of the ancient technology they have discovered. These ruins predate the hegemony by at least 10,000 years, Velkaran admitted during one of their exchanges. We have claimed them as ancestral sites, but truthfully, we know little about the civilization that built them. Then perhaps we can learn together, Dr. Vasquez suggested. Human archaeological techniques might complement your historical records. Meanwhile, on Earth, the implications of first contact were being discussed at the highest levels of government and military command. Admiral Rebecca Chen, commander of Earth's defense forces, studied the tactical reports from the Perseverance with growing concern and pride. They've proven that human military thinking can compete with alien technology, she told the assembled Defense Council. But they've also guaranteed that we'll be facing larger forces in the future. The galaxy now knows that Earth exists and that we're not easily intimidated. The Admiral's predictions proved accurate sooner than expected. Within 72 hours of the initial contact, long-range sensors detected multiple wormhole signatures throughout the outer system. The hegemony response was massive. Over 200 ships of various classes, from sleek destroyers to massive battleships that dwarfed even the largest human vessels. At the head of this impressive fleet was High Admiral Krickstall, a hegemony leader whose reputation for decisive action had been earned through the successful integration of 17 resistant species. Unlike Zixthera's exploratory force, this was an armada designed to end conflicts rather than investigate them. Captain Martinez, came the transmission from the flagship Supremacy. I am High Admiral Krickstall of the Hegemony Corps Fleet. Your resistance to lawful authority ends now. Surrender your vessels and prepare for processing. Martinez looked around her bridge at the faces of her crew. 3 days ago, they had been scientists and explorers. Now they were representatives of humanity in its first great test among the stars. The weight of that responsibility was enormous, but so was the determination she saw reflected in every face. Admiral Chen to Captain Martinez came a tight beam transmission from Earth's defense fleet, which had been racing toward their position since the first contact. ETA 4 hours. Can you hold position? Martinez smiled grimly. Earth's response to the crisis had been typically human. Instead of diplomatic protests or offers of submission, they had sent their military. Admiral Chen's task force might be outnumbered and outgunned, but they were coming. High Admiral Krickstall, Martins replied to the alien demand. I am Captain Sarah Martinez, representing the sovereign world of Earth and its colonies. We recognize no authority over human activities except that granted by humanity itself. However, we remain interested in peaceful negotiations between equals. The response was immediate and predictable. Your species has 30 standard time units to surrender unconditionally. After that time, we will demonstrate the consequences of challenging hegemony authority. What followed was a masterclass in human tactical innovation under pressure. Unable to match the alien fleet's firepower, the crew of the Perseverance and the arriving Earth forces implemented strategies that had never been seen in galactic warfare. They used the ancient ruins themselves as cover, positioning their ships within the planet's magnetic field to disrupt alien sensors. They deployed clouds of reflective chaff that confused targeting systems designed for energy weapons, but ineffective against ballistic projectiles. Most importantly, they demonstrated the human principle of adaptive improvisation under fire. The battle that ensued became known throughout the galaxy as the Kepler engagement. Human forces, outnumbered 50-1, managed to disable or destroy over 30% of the hegemony fleet through tactics that violated every established principle of space warfare. They used the ancient ruins themselves as cover, positioning their ships within the planet's magnetic field to disrupt alien sensors. They deployed clouds of reflective chaff that confused targeting systems designed for energy weapons, but ineffective against ballistic projectiles. Most importantly, they demonstrated the human principle of adaptive improvisation under fire. The battle that ensued became known throughout the galaxy as the Kepler engagement. Human forces, outnumbered 50-1, managed to disable or destroy over 30% of the hegemony fleet through tactics that violated every established principle of space warfare. They used asteroid mines as improvised weapons platforms. They turned exploration drones into suicide bombers. They even used the ancient alien ruins' still functional technology to create defensive barriers that confused and disrupted the hegemony's coordinated attack patterns. When the smoke cleared, High Admiral Crickstall found himself in the unprecedented position of requesting a ceasefire from a species the hegemony had classified as primitive. The human losses had been significant, but their tactical victory was undeniable. Captain Martinez, came the final transmission from the battered hegemony flagship. The Council will hear of your species' capabilities. We withdraw our immediate demands pending further diplomatic consultation. As the hegemony fleet retreated to the outer system, Captain Martinez stood once again before her viewport, looking down at the ancient ruins that had started this conflict. Dr. Vasquez joined her, both women contemplating the implications of what they had accomplished. We've announced humanity's presence to the galaxy, Vasquez observed. There's no going back now. Martinez nodded. But we've also established that Earth won't be anyone's subject world. Whatever comes next, we'll face it as equals. In the depths of space, the galaxy began to take notice of a new player in galactic politics, a species that combined advanced technology with innovative tactics, diplomatic courage with military skill, and most dangerously of all, the unshakable belief that freedom was worth fighting for. Humanity had passed its first test among the stars, and the universe would never be quite the same.